Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm delighted to see all the messages in the chat, different places that people are coming from. I'm really glad that you could make time today and join us for this Get Abstract Expert webinar on building proactive resilience, which is a skill that's becoming a true strategic advantage in today's constant world of change. And we are joined by Dr. Marie-Hélène Pelletier, an award-winning leader, psychologist, international keynote speaker, executive coach, and senior leader with over 20 years of experience helping professionals sustain performance while safeguarding mental health. Welcome, Marie-Hélène.
Thank you, Ramona. It's an absolute thrill to be here and to see everyone. We've got people from all over. It's so exciting. Thank you for making time to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here today. You're joining us from Canada. We just chatted a bit in the background, so very nice location that you're at. You're a member of the World Health Organization's Global Clinical Practice Network, also of the Harvard Business Review Advisory Council, and you are the author of the award-winning book, The Resilience Plan, which we, by the way, have summarized in 4 different languages: English, Portuguese, Spanish, and German. And your book was named a top 5 book to read by both Inc. and Forbes. So congratulations on that. That's a really
Thank
great
you.
read.
Thanks.
And in today's conversation, we'll explore how resilience isn't just something that you call on in a crisis, but it's really something that you can build proactively day by day. By the end of the session, we promise our audience that they will have practical strategies to embrace resilience as an ongoing practice, also to craft resilience and a plan tailored to their own circumstances, and to navigate work and life challenges with more confidence and energy. But before we dive in, we would like to ask our audience a question. We are going to post that in the chat and pin it. And the question is, when you hear the word resilience, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you? Is it like bouncing back from setbacks? Is it staying calm under pressure? Or maybe something totally else? Please type your answers in the chat. And while you're typing, Marie-Hélène and I, we will be starting. So what first drew you to the topic of resilience?
It came to me. It came to me from people I was working with. It came to me from my executive coaching clients. It came to me from keynote requests. And because I work a lot with professionals and leaders who are obviously already fantastic at so many things they do, highly resilient in general, but still human with ups and downs, it just represented a great part of the overall mental health conversation to enter this very important topic. It spoke to this audience more than talking, say, about mental health more generally, and was more inspiring to them. And I do find it inspiring because a lot of it is about being proactive and also, I would argue, being even strategic.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Let's see what people are saying. I have to scroll. There are so many answers. Let me scroll down. So, how to avoid being demoralized, endurance, learn from difficult situations, being able to ride through the day, learn ability to overcome, ability to resist stress, thriving, not surviving. That's also very nice. Avoiding burnout, flexibility, managing emotional response. So I wonder, you as the expert, how do you refine resilience?
And it's amazing to see the various responses and perspectives because even if we look at the academic literature, there is actually a range of definitions, and these definitions have even evolved over time.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, that's what happens with research. But the one that most are using, and is the one I'm using as well in my book and in my work, is our ability to go through adversity and come out even stronger. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there's a few pieces that are very important about this. So, adversity here, often we think of it as an acute moment, right? And it does include acute moments, but it also includes chronic demands. So, things that are there always, like having AI in our professional and personal lives, even more. That would be and a chronic demand that's there. The other element that's important to come out even stronger, there is this growth element. So we're learning from this and we're taking it with us over time.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
yes, go ahead.
You go ahead, please.
Oh,
Sorry.
well, when I get started on this, there's
Sure.
often so much more to add. And we'll talk about this. But the one piece I was going to add to as we start thinking in today's conversation about resilience, one of the most important pieces of evolution in this conversation that I contributed to and others did as well, and we're seeing in the research, is that we don't want to think about resilience only as an individual item. It
Mhm.
is in a systemic way. We are here, especially in the work context, as individual, team, and the organization. It's a system, and all the parts are influencing each other. And we'll talk about it in our conversation today. But it almost needs to be tied to the definition so that we start seeing it this way from the beginning.
Yeah, perfect. So you said it in the beginning, it's different from pushing through or just being tough in the sense that we come out of the situation stronger. Can you elaborate a bit on how that maybe changed over the year, like the overall perception of the term resilience?
Yeah.
Do you feel it's more relevant today than it was, say, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago?
We talk about it more today, and because of that, we bring it more to our daily and daily life. So in that sense, probably yes. One of the key things that has evolved that connects with what we were just talking about this systemic perspective we want to have is the way we think about things in general, but including resilience, is influenced by so many experiences we've been exposed to, right? And specifically with AI, with resilience, it's as if we've seen in the movie that story of redemption, right? We've got this person who is in a tough situation and on their own completely win and get out of this. And that has influenced how we think about our resilience, that initially we think of it in an individual way, like it's all in me. And if I do all the right things, I can survive any very difficult context, acute, chronic combination, one after the other. If I'm strong enough, I could do this. That's that
Mhm.
story of redemption. And that was true in some of the movies, but really, no, we are influenced by other factors. We need to take the context into account. So it is not just about pushing through, it's about knowing our context, having really good visibility, and not only the context for the variables in the context, but context for the community. So the people that are around us in our lives, and we influence them, they influence us. And that element of connection is extremely important as well.
Mhm. Okay.
Mhm.
At this point, I'd like to encourage the audience to share their questions. There is a chat, there is a Q&A, so if you want, please post your questions for Marie-Hélène at any time during that session in the Q&A, and we will address as many as we can. So we just talked about, or you just talked about a bit, proactive resilience. That's what you mentioned. What does that mean in practice for someone who isn't necessarily in a leadership role, but still faces daily pressures? And I guess that's basically everybody who's in that webinar today. I feel it
Yes,
first.
yes, absolutely. It is all of us, and even those who are not with us today. That's the
Mm,
nature of being human, right? In a number of ways. So I'll tell you how that specific idea of bringing what we know from research in psychology, bringing that with what we use in business, where that came from, because that's very much the idea behind the book, and the idea was also behind how can we approach resilience differently. And part of what happened is I was speaking with people I work with, and at some point explaining how if we are in business, and then those of you who are in business will see that, but even if we're not, you will see this. When someone is in a business and has a new idea for a new offering, a new product, a new service, we don't just say, oh, we have a good idea, let's launch it. What we'll do is we'll say, we have a good idea. Okay, who else is offering this product or service? How much are they charging for it? How much people are willing to pay for it? With what forces in the near or far future might impact the demand for it? We're doing all this strategic thinking work.
mhm,
Right? And then we create a plan and proceed. We need to do the same thing about our resilience. We can't just say, yeah, it would be great to do all the things that research says we should do. And yes, that is very established that if we are able to do more cardio training, strength training, meditative activities, eating well, sleeping, spending time with
Mhm.
people we enjoy, spending time with. All this is very established. We do know these are actually the 4 top categories. The problem is not knowing, it's in doing. So in our personal lives,
Mhm.
if all we say is, yes, I want to increase my resilience, let's do it, your life is full. Your life is probably overflowing already. So if we're going to change something here, we're going to need to be strategic. We're going to need to look at each of our contexts. So your context, Ramona, will be different from mine. My context today might be different from my context 3 months ago or 6 months, in 6 months from now. And so we need to look realistically at what's going on, and then from there build a plan, which then allows us to, yes, create something that is, yes, proactive, more strategic, and therefore more effective. It actually
Mhm.
happens.
Yeah, I can relate so much, and I see people commenting in the chat they can relate too. Yeah, in your work, like what are the most common resilience traps that professionals fall into?
The number one, Ramona, and we've experienced it, I'm sure you have, I have for sure, but is to get in the mode of thinking that resilience is a personality trait.
Mhm.
So we're thinking, oh, yeah, I have been so resilient all these moments in my life so far. I know this. So this is who I am. And great. I'll just carry on doing the same thing.
Mhm.
So, a couple of problems with this. One is it is not a personality trait. It is actually a bit influenced by a personality trait. One of them is optimism. So we know that if someone tends to be more optimistic as a personality trait, their resilience in general might fluctuate, like for all of us, but tends to be a bit higher. Okay. But even then, it is not a trait, it is a state.
Mhm.
So, because it is a state, it will evolve, it will fluctuate over time, and we can, and I would argue should, influence it. So that's one of the key things. Another mistake sometimes is to think, well, okay, fine, it's a state, and I can just decide to be in that state if I need it or whenever I want it. No, you can't. It's like deciding to have a very productive retirement fund if you have not invested money in your retirement. It will not be there for you. You do need to do that. Another trap is to think that, okay, it's a state and I cannot influence it, so it will be whatever it is.
Mhm.
Just, you know, and no, we have agency. We have an opportunity to influence, not 100%, because there is other variables in the context. It is a system and all the all those aspects, but absolutely we can influence it, and it's valuable to do that.
Say, knowing about these traps, does that automatically mean that I'll be able to avoid them? I mean, how can I avoid
No,
them?
well, you'll need a plan. You'll need a plan,
Mhm.
and to take action. Really, I mean, so yes, and it is important. Going back to that first trap of thinking it's a personality trait, um, we get there thinking this for all kinds of reasons, but one of them is also that the reality is we have seen ourselves over time go through very demanding, acute, and chronic moments, and actually go through with resilience, learn from it, get out even stronger. All of that. Sometimes the trap is to use these old data in some ways to just put them in today's situation. Now, the kinds of challenges we've all experienced early career are different from the challenges we'll have mid-career or later in our careers. Not only they are bigger, more complex, but they're also often matched by also larger demands on the personal side.
Mhm.
And that's very important because often people will want to be really investing in their resilience in the work context, which is great.
Mhm.
But what we really want, if we want to do that, is to think of it in parallel with our personal context. And one of the visuals I use for my framework is that of the DNA. So you know that sort of two lines crossing, that when we see a model, a visual of a DNA, and I'm using it to say it's as if the two sides of the ladder are professional and personal. So we
Mhm.
always want to think about both. Emotions don't have lanes. So whatever's going on the personal yes, will influence our performance at work, our ability to concentrate, all these things. So we want to be realistic about that. It's not the end of the world, but we
Mhm.
want to just approach it with visibility. And then the rungs, if we want individual, which are part of my framework, is to make sure you connect what your plan's going to be with your values, which will be
Mhm.
very personal to each of us. Our sources of supply and demand, I can explain that. That's probably the one worksheet people comment to me most about.
Mhm.
We'll want to look at our full context and then literally create a strategic plan like we do in business.
Mhm.
Three core strategic pillars where we each of us will decide to invest in based on where we're at, and then very doable actions for each of us.
Great. We'll talk more about the plan in
Yes.
detail in a moment, but I want to read out a question from the audience first, which goes in the direction of what you just mentioned. How might we think differently about organizational resilience and how to build it rather than personal resilience? What do you think are like the differences in thinking?
Yes. So it's a great question and could be the topic of an entire different webinar for
Hmm.
us to look at it from a team and organizational perspective. Um, so we want to, I would almost say it's not even rather, it's uh, in addition to, if we want to think of it this way. So high level definition still the same. Just like I said, for individuals, our ability to go through adversity come out even stronger. Okay.
Hmm.
It would be the same if we were looking at our team resilience, our ability as a team to go through adversity come out even stronger. And same for the organization. So same definition. But then it connects, of course, to different actions. So both for the organization and the team levels, we'll be looking at the group as opposed to the individuals within the group. Because you could have a group of individually resilient people, and still the team might not be resilient in itself as a team
Hmm.
or as an organization. A good place to start, to go back specifically to this question for an organization, is to look at the factors that will tend to create psychological health and safety in the
Hmm.
overall organization, because they connect very much to what will then create resilience for the groups. And specifically, um, let's get practical. What do we do? Like, look at, for most organizations, not all, but very often, the factors that emerge at the top in terms of what should we pay attention to first, we want to look at workload, we want to look at our culture, and we want to look at the opportunities for growth and development that we bring in this organization, because that's part of what will create motivation, retention,
Hmm.
engagement, influence, all these beautiful things.
Yes.
And so if I go one notch more practical on each of those quickly, workload, people often don't want to address it because they think, I don't want to open that
Just what
conversation.
it
It's
is.
yes, right? We cannot change anything. Look for the small nuggets. Look for example, what is one of the tasks or the projects or the processes we have, and ask the team or the group involved, where is the biggest stress or pain point? And then let's pay attention to that point, pay attention to it, and make it bit better in whatever ways. Improve the
Hmm.
process, improve how we do it, and then that's a small change. It often is something we don't even do often. That's in part why it creates stress. But now people feel more confident about it, and it changes the overall feel.
Hmm.
That's an example. And we can talk more about other examples for culture and growth and development, but we want to take action, really. We cannot just talk about it.
Yeah, and that's very good advice. Take action. There is a comment in the chat, a comment on your comments regarding organizational resilience. And somebody says we must have patience, compassion, understanding, and empathy for corporate strategy. So yeah.
That is true. Yes, yes, we want to we the first word I think was patience in the list.
Mhm.
Yes, because things take time. A bigger machine takes longer to change, obviously. So that's true. The one thing I would say about this is that yes, we want to be realistic about how long it takes for some of those changes to be implemented. We may even be part of making these, supporting these changes. That's wonderful. However, if we are in a situation where our own resilience is down, we're sliding towards burnout, even, for example, it is probably the case that now you need to really turn to yourself, your own health, get the supports you need, because it is unlikely, in my experience, that things here, let's say that this situation is in part influenced by the overall team or organizational context,
Hmm.
because they take longer to change, they will unlikely change fast enough to help you here.
Hmm.
So we cannot just say, well, I'll just be patient and suffer while I'm being patient.
Hmm.
It's true that it takes time, depending on where you're at. Yes, it may be possible to be realistic and patient and all. But if your health is impacted, then you need to turn to you first. And maybe it's not about being patient now. You may need to get out.
Yeah. So, okay, for those of us individuals who want to build resilience, like right now, but maybe feel too busy to add anything else, what is one small high impact change that we can start doing tomorrow? You just mentioned the small steps. What would be a good example that we can apply right away? Take action.
Yes. Yes, yes. And I love that question. I mean, first, I'll say still, what will have the largest impact over time is to create a bit of a plan for yourself,
Hmm.
because then, you're more customized and all that kind of thing. So I'll still say that here. But to answer your question, one of the things I often hear with people I work with is that there is something that brings them energy back, like that allows for recovery, and often it will be active recovery, as in people will go for a run or a bike ride or a hike, or they'll be actively re-energizing, which is wonderful. Keep that. But your one next action would be to bring, I'm going to bring meditation in here.
Hmm.
And some of you are doing it. That's great. Keep doing it. Research fully supports it. Some of you are thinking, MH, I have tried this. It's not for me.
Not
My
for me.
brain just spins and I cannot calm down. Treat it as a new sport you've never done. Give yourself a year to start seeing that your brain can actually calm down. So I would say put that on your list, start gradually, use an app, 5 minutes once in a while to just start building. But in an even smaller action, each time you wash your hands, that's going to take you about 20 seconds if you do this well, now that we've all trained with the pandemic. While you're washing your hands, 5 deep breaths, starting with air out, completely out until you have nothing. And you see how that's already calming things down. That's the fastest way to tell your brain to relax. So that would be the quick one.
I like that. Quick wins are great, but we've learned from you already that resilience isn't like a one size fits all. So we've talked about the plan. Let's dig into how we can personalize the experience for us. Like make a plan that really works for each of us. Your book talks about creating that personalized resilience plan. What does that look like in real life? Could you share an
Yes,
example of how someone might tailor it to their unique situation? Examples always work well.
yes, exactly. And we will have when you and thank you so much for sending the link to everyone who are here today or who registered. But we'll have a link to the worksheets that are connected with the book, and they are free. And they are fairly standalone. You can use them just on their own or with or without the book, basically. But the worksheets will guide you through clarifying, having even more visibility on your values, on your sources of supply and demand of energy, what demands energy from you, what gives you energy. It will allow you to explore, again, everything is very concise. I know no one has time, so I know, but we need clarity on your context, right? So we'll have that, and then there will be literally a worksheet that guides you through creating your strategy. So you have 4 worksheets, you get your strategy. Even the book is a decently quick read. If you have uh, a bit of a longer flight, 5 or 6 hours, you can go through the book and come out with your strategy. I'll give you an example. So I was working with someone who, when he described his values, he had things like influence, family, power, um, outdoors was there, health was there, relationship, friendships. Okay. And a few others. Then we went to that worksheet on supply and demand. And what happened to him is what happens to almost everyone who does that sheet, is because he started writing the demands, and like all of us wrote a few demands related to work, a few demands related to personal life, and then I said keep adding and add the demands that are also positive ones. So things that you're happy to have, but they're still demanding more energy.
Mhm.
Now the list became much longer because that's the thing. We tend to underestimate the demands. Mm. So let's be clear on what they are. Then the supply side. What am I doing that is bringing me back energy? And we were talking about this. So he said, well, yeah, usually, I go to the gym a few times a week. And I said, great. How many times in the past 2 weeks? And he said, well, the past 2 months have been extraordinary busy. So no, but in general, well, then it doesn't go on the list, does it? Right.
Mhm.
So that additional clarity, then a few steps further, got him to his strategic plan. And so for him, what he realized through all this was that one of his values was family, relationships, friendships. This was nowhere else in his context or in his sources of supply or demand, nowhere.
Mhm.
So one of his pillars became family. And one of his actions, and we do need to look for very doable actions. So one of his was when he's working from home virtually, like some of us from time to time, and the doors open. So, people can come in, people in the house. In what he used to do is someone comes in, he talks to them, but fingers on the keyboard, you know.
Mhm.
And so he committed that when that would happen, he would actually stand up, come out of the room, and spend those few minutes with the person important to him.
Oh, I like
Now
that.
what we're doing is we're aligning values, right?
Mhm.
There was other pillars for him to get back into prioritizing health, which sometimes feels like you're compromising if you're pushing work aside to do a bit of exercise, but really no, you're creating value add. That's what you're
Mhm.
doing. So for him, that was part of his plan as well. So these are some examples.
Mhm. Do you believe in the perfect plan? I'm asking because somebody here in the chat is asking how much can we stretch? I can imagine where the question comes from, actually. People might think they cannot incorporate everything in their day, and, not everything is so straightforward. So, do you believe in the perfect plan?
Ah, well, that's an interesting question. I don't know. No, we're not going to go perfect plan. Just like we would not say for a business, is your strategic plan perfect? No, it's the best we could come up with right
Mhm.
now based on as much information as we can. And we're implementing and we're going to evolve it over time.
Mhm.
So back to your other point about how much can we stretch kind of thing. No, no, no. We're absolutely not about stretching. This plan will be so customized to you. You're creating it that it will be very doable. So
Mhm.
if right now, for example, and of course it depends on each person's context, and that's part of what I do. Sometimes when I work with individuals who are like MH, I have no idea how to do it, but I want it. so
Mhm.
I'll do it with people. But say at a minimum, you are likely multiple times a day washing your hands. At a minimum, while you're doing it. So we're not adding anything, any time commitment to you. All we're saying is give yourself that time. Not instead of just making it something that needs to happen, be more deliberate about using that time for the 5 deep breaths. So doesn't add more time, is very doable, and starts shifting the balance towards I'm paying attention to what's important for me, for my values, for my resilience, and I do it. I'll give you another example. If during the weekend you happen to have gone for a walk or something that you did with your family or with people you love, and you get back to work on Monday or on video, it doesn't matter. People ask, oh, how was your weekend? And let's say you share that you went for a walk. Usually you would do that. Yeah, I went for a nice walk. It was nice weather, whatever.
Mhm.
How about just adding, I went for a walk, nice weather, because I wanted to make sure I invest in my resilience. I know we have an exciting, busy week in front of us.
Mhm.
Look at that. I just added 3 seconds of my time. And now what I've done is communicated that I pay attention to this for myself.
Mhm.
I may
Mhm.
inspire someone else to do the same thing. I convey a value for this culture in this team, the culture of this team, that we pay attention to how we're doing individually, but together as well. Small investments makes a difference.
And that also brings intention to your action, right?
Very much
If
so.
you
Very much so.
phrase it that way. Your examples show that people recharge through in very different ways. Some through physical activity, like taking a walk, others through reflection or through connection, like the person you mentioned before. How can we figure out what truly works for us? I have the feeling we have to start at the very beginning, you know?
So there is a combination of yes, I would say you knowing yourself, you look at the past, whatever, 2, 5, 10, 20 years in your life, even childhood sometimes. If you think of it, were there any activities that you used to do that when you did that, it brought you joy, it brought you energy, it felt good? Maybe that is your next action, assuming it's healthy. Bring it back. That may be your next action. But the reality is that we also know from research that there are categories to invest in first, to put priority on. And these are exercise, which includes cardio, strength training, and meditative type activity. Nutrition, huge impact
Mhm,
on our psychological health. Literally, we have research saying, how colorful is your plate as a measure of mood, predictor of mood.
mhm,
That's very strong. Sleep, of course, we hear about it and we can talk about the challenges, but that's a key component. We are aiming at 7 to 8 hours, and then spending time with people we enjoy spending time with. And then, so these are top four, just
mhm,
those that have received the most research. Doesn't mean that others are not good as well. But if we're going to start somewhere, like if we're looking at the lifestyle clinics, looking at how to improve our overall health, physical and mental, this is where we would start first for sure to optimize how things are going. But then we have others like volunteer work. If you have enough time and energy for this, spending time in nature. If you're going to go for a walk and you have choice between sidewalk or park, assuming park is safe, you're going in a park. So these are the kinds of things we know from research. And so you see how sometimes I'll have clients talk to me about, oh, but can I go for a massage instead or whatever? Massages are great, very, very much in support of massages. However, if you only have 1/2 hour to invest in your week, you'd probably want to go and make sure you're paying attention to these four variables, right?
mhm,
And then add additional things that work well for you.
mhm. I can totally relate. Like nature is my thing. When I go outside and I see something green, that totally, changes my day.
I know. I tried to bring some in my office.
Mhm. Yeah, and then the color of your shirt, really nice.
I, yes.
I just want to send a note to the audience. We will share the link to the worksheet with the follow-up email, and you'll have that in about 2 days. Somebody was asking about that link, so it's coming your way
Yeah.
in about 2 days. Um, Let me think, Marie-Hélène, how do you recommend that professionals keep their resilience plan alive? So once somebody crafted it, and that's what people also have been asking in the chat, how do you stick to your plan? How do you keep it alive as the circumstances of life are, busy and also changing? Like context is changing all the time, right?
Yes. Oh, this is a great question because yes, it's exactly it. Either we travel for work or people around us need different things from us or we have a vacation coming, right? So there will be changes in context, absolutely. So a couple of things. So we want to create our plan like we discussed before, and once you have your plan, as you notice moments of change in your life, like you're traveling for work or whatever, create versions of your plan. So it can be adaptable. So let's say the plan involved uh, doing exercise outside 3 times a week, for example, going for a 10-minute walk before lunch 3 times a week. Well, maybe while traveling, this will be challenging and different. So maybe it will be using an app to do 10 minutes of exercise before the day starts in the hotel room, for example, or going to the hotel gym. So that maybe, so it's an adaptation that we want to make sure we have. And there will also be moments where we don't know in advance that the context will change. So we want to be realistic and self compassionate when that happens. I had
Mhm.
someone very wonderful, high level professional implementing their plan. And at some point, they sent me an email back and they said, MH, we need to talk prior to our next appointment because I fell off the rails completely. Like the plan's not happening anymore. So we connected, we talked. And what the individual described to me was how, in the recent past few weeks, someone in their work had to uh, take time off, so they had to take on a few additional pieces. They were asked to do more things on committees that they were on. A number of things was happening that they were not expecting. And they said, NMH, given this, I was only able to do my exercise twice in the past few weeks per week.
Mhm.
And I said, okay. So if someone, and I described that same situation, if someone told you that they have all these additional unplanned demands and they manage to keep exercise twice a week, what would you say to them? And they said, well,
Good
I'd say
job.
that's amazing. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
exactly.
job.
Exactly. And so that shifted because then, okay, yes, we need to give ourselves self compassion, which is
Mhm,
just recognizing the situation and recognizing it as valid.
mhm,
So, yeah, it's a situation, it's situational. It will not always be like this, but right now it needs to be adapted. So, there is this part having a plan that has adaptability in it, whether it's planned or just recognizing when it's there. The other thing too is that just like in business, when we create a strategic plan here, it is not forever, right?
mhm,
It usually has a timeline. We expect it to be for the next say 3 months, but we will check in earlier. Is that still a good plan for us? Has anything changed that suggests that we should change it? Or maybe it is a good plan and then in 3 months we've reached it, then we need the next iteration of that plan. What are we doing next now that the product is launched and we've done this? And I've had exactly this situation. Because when you write a book, this is my first and only book, everyone. So I've learned everything. It's like having a first child. You know nothing and you learn everything as you go. Exactly it. So, well, not
Oh, now your audio cut out.
just groups. So you're running ideas by people about what you're planning to do. So I did that, a virtual one. I had people just like here from around the world join it, and that was it. Shortly after this, I received an email from one of the participants who said, okay, MH, I have my plan, love it, can you come and do that workshop for my team of leaders in 3 months from now? Yes, absolutely. Very exciting. More data for me. So I go 3 months after that. She's there, meet her in person. That's very exciting. And she says, I'm going to sit at the back so I can let the group, really go through the process, the framework. After she comes to me and she says, okay, something very exciting just happened because she said, I thought I would just sit here and, let the others do their thing. But I was here anyway, so I thought I'd just participate. And she realized she had implemented her plan from 3 months ago, and she was ready for her next plan, and that's what she did. And
Mhm,
so you can imagine how wonderful it feels, because in
mhm,
her case, she went from that feeling of running around without your head on your shoulders to having control, getting more stuff done, but feeling better also about everything. And now she was ready for her next level. So it will evolve.
mhm. Very good. Yeah. Must be very satisfactory to have one plan fulfilled, so to say.
It is. It is.
Yeah, while you were elaborating, I was scrolling back up to our initial question and I found somebody who said that resilience for them also means accepting boundaries, setting and accepting boundaries. And I was wondering, many professionals, especially those who don't have like formal leadership titles, and there may be many on this webinar today, they struggle with boundaries, right? They tend not to say no.
Yes.
What role do you think do boundaries play in resilience? And how can we set them without feeling the guilt?
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you for catching this. That's, I would say, having a strategic pillar named boundaries is a very frequent one I see in people I work with. No matter what the role is at work, personal life, people whose most of their life is at home,
Hmm.
it really varies. But we need boundaries sometimes, and there are moments where we need to put the focus on making sure they get there even better. And people will realize that sometimes seeing how they have many values, but the demands are very big, and they realize that maybe they're saying yes to everything and yes fully to everything, as opposed to maybe saying, not right now, let me think about it, let me get back to you, looking at their other demands, and then coming back saying, I wish I could say yes to this. However, I can't, given my other demands I need to honor. So boundaries, really important. And so sometimes it will be more present naturally. Sometimes we need to pay attention to them and do it with more intentionality. Sometimes it will be with also more focus, like boundaries with whom? Is it boundaries with friends? Is it boundaries with family members? Closer or extended? Is it boundaries at work? Is it at work with peers, with boss, with people in our team? It will vary. And so finding where is it that I want to have even better boundaries, important, makes it more specific and actionable. And in the exact way we'll do it will depend, of course. And sometimes, yes, we'll need to talk to our coach or someone to figure out how do I do this? you know,
Mhm.
um, to your point, often there will be this element of part of what allowed many to get to where they are in their career is that we've said yes.
Mhm.
We've taken opportunities, and often it has to be that way. If you are too selective too early, you will not even have the chance to experience what you enjoy most, what you're good at, where you want to build. So it has benefits. However, similarly to how we think of development, that often we'll think about child development, teen, adolescent development, and adult. Well, there is a development within adult. We're not the same person in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and so on. So the possibility of saying yes to most things in our 20s is something. It's not always the case, but let's say it has more probability of working. But then you get to a point where if you keep saying yes to all the things, it will just not work. It becomes impossible. So we have to shift how we do this. And often connecting it with what our values will work. It doesn't change that. It makes us almost believe that the right thing to do is to say yes. And if we're going to say no or decline, then we feel like it's not the right thing. We feel guilty potentially. So one
Mhm.
of the ways to start stretching that belief in a different way is to realize that often it's because we're operating with a rule that actually doesn't apply anymore. So we've had this rule of yes, saying yes, taking opportunities is useful. Great. Now we're here, say 20 years later, and we're still saying yes to all the things. This is not a rule. No one has put this rule out that you have to
Mhm.
say yes to everything. You are now in this particular context is at this point in your life, you have these demands, whatever, all the things, and you decide what your rule is and then
Oh, I
align
like
it
that.
with your values. So
Mhm.
that's one piece. The other piece, if that's so it sounds like it resonates with you, Ramona, but let's say it doesn't for someone in the audience, then my backup argument is guilt over burnout.
Mhm.
Dealing with guilt, yeah, it's uncomfortable and all this, but let me tell you, and for anyone who's had a burnout or seen someone through it, burnout is worse. So that discomfort of, I'm saying no, but I'm feeling guilty. Yes, but this, I would suggest take this over
Mhm.
saying yes and then finding yourself in a burnout any day. And I've even had corporate clients who have made it a thing. Like they'll say to their colleagues, "Oh, I'm going skiing for a half day with my son. Guilt over burnout, I'm not available for the next 4 hours." MH said it because because yeah, right? We need to be realistic about this.
Mhm. I like that very much. It's such good advice. Let's zoom out a little. What does all of this, taking care of ourselves in the sense that you just mentioned, what does this mean for our performance and ultimately for our mental health over the very long run? You mentioned the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So, what is the big picture?
Yes. Love that question as well. Um, so whether we think of it on a regular basis and deeply or not, we all have a mental health, just like we all have a physical health and a financial health. And, it broadens in many other areas. And so and the reality is that we're human. We do have AI friends, but they are dealing with something different. Us as humans have limits. There are moments where we will not, as much as we wish, we will not be able to override the impact that we're experiencing in tough situations. So
Mhm.
sometimes I've had clients say, MH, I am in this extremely toxic work environment and I need to stay there. Help me. And be like, well, I'll help you, but we may or may not keep you there, because it's not just something you can decide or override. At some point, that will have an impact on your mental health. And so the importance, and if you think of the overall mental health, we want to think of it as a continuum. That's another trap. Sometimes we think of it as a dichotomy. I'm either mentally healthy or I'm not. And most people, let's say, are. Unfortunately, some are not. And that's just two different buckets, not two buckets. We are all on a continuum, same as physical health, same thing.
Mhm.
And so, what that means is if we're lucky enough to be in a healthy, we're producing, we're contributing range here, so important to invest in our resilience. It will not be 100% protection because there are many variables, there are the genetics, so many things. However, it is one part we do have influence on. Like we
Mhm.
know from research, for example, that exercise will have an impact and nutrition will have an impact on our risk for dementia down the road. So it's not just, oh, well, oh, we don't know, it could happen. We don't have full control, but we have some.
Mhm.
So all these things we've been talking about for our resilience, they have very immediate impacts today, this week, this quarter, yes. And they have longer term impact as well on our overall mental health. And that connects with even what you were mentioning earlier in today's conversation. We are we want to thrive, not just survive. And that's true
Mhm.
for the longevity situation, because we will more likely, generally as an overall population, varies of course, but live longer.
Mhm.
And it's not just about the physical living longer, it's also the mental health side of things. And so that's also another good reason to invest in this now, right?
Mhm.
And then to the other aspect, the performance aspect, absolutely, we've spent whatever time you've been in your education and work context, you've built your brand. You've built how you are as an individual contributor or as a leader in the work you do, how you are with people, and all this. If we invest in our resilience, it allows you to bring your best to what you do. If we don't, it will have impact on everything. It will have
Mhm.
impact on our ability to make decisions, our concentration, um, our levels of impatience, to the point where, again, it's not just something we can override and say, I'm going to stay my fantastic self. When we're starting to be impacted, it will impact how you interact, how you are, how you contribute.
Mhm.
And that, again, if I'm not catching you on the health argument, I'm going to catch you on the brand argument. You've
Mhm.
built this brand. Do you really want to put that at risk? No,
No.
no, we don't. Yeah.
I honestly hate it, but I have to wrap up here. It's been such a rich and inspiring conversation. I loved all the engagement in the chat, many, many comments. Marie-Hélène, thank you for sharing your insights and your practical strategies with us today. To everyone in the audience, I encourage you to take one of the ideas our speaker just mentioned and put it into action this week, or better today, or immediately. Whether it's setting a boundary or trying like a small daily practice or beginning to outline your personal resilience plan. It grows through intentional steps. That's what we have learned today. And yeah, build yourself the right foundations to thrive. If you like to dive deeper, I recommend you read the book, The Resilience Plan, or the summary, which we have in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and German. It's really a wonderful resource for creating a personalized and also very actionable blueprint for yourself. And if you want to review the session, please have a look at the recording. As I said, it'll be sent to you in the next few days, I assume in 2 days. Well, congratulations on taking the time to work on your skills today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us at corporate@getabstract.com or get in touch with Marie-Hélène directly on her LinkedIn or through email. It's mh@drmarie-helene.com. We will post it here in the chat. And also that link that I mentioned earlier to the worksheets, it's coming with the follow-up email. So make sure you get access to these worksheets. Stay tuned for further events brought to you by Get Abstract. And Marie-Hélène, thank you for being here today. It was really wonderful having you on the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramona. And thanks, everyone. It was fantastic to see all the engagement.
Thank you so much. Everybody have a good day and yeah, good luck and lots of success building your resilience. Bye-bye.